We have a question about how Tom Brady's season has gone as a whole. So let's just get into that because the next game is Falcons at Buccaneers. This line opened up Buccaneers -6, and it's up to 6.5. We just saw this matchup 2 weeks ago where Tampa was down big at halftime, and then they came back. So who do you like here, and what are your thoughts of Brady's season in 2020?
Yeah, so I like the Bucs here quite a bit, and I think Brady's had a good season. I think Patrick's point, he has been inconsistent. I think that's correct. But I also think that's partially related to, there have been some injuries on the offensive line. When Ali Marpet has been out, he's been under more pressure from the interior. I think that's had a big impact on him. We saw Donovan Smith out a couple weeks ago, and that had a big impact on him. I think that was against the Falcons, if I remember correctly. And that had an impact early. But Brady's also developing chemistry with a whole new set of weapons. Like, Gronk he's worked with, and Antonio Brown he had worked with previously as well. But Brown was only with him for 13 days, and he joined mid-season. And then he had to develop chemistry with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and all the other receivers on the roster without, like, a real full offseason. So I think we've kind of seen Brady be a little up and down because, they're still meshing as a team. And I think they're possibly hitting their stride at the right time. We'll see what ends up happening. But I think that this matchup against the Falcons, they struggled early in the last game, as you referenced, but really turned it on at the end. I kind of think that's how this game's going to go more so. The Bucs know they need to win this game to wrap up the number 5 seed. And if they do that, they're guaranteed to face the winner of the NFC East. And that should be a game that they're favored in. I don't know about heavily because Tom Brady isn't always good against great pass rushes. And, Giants are his kryptonite. So if they somehow get in and win, like, who knows? I will be very upset. That I'll be happy for you, but I'll be upset that I have to choose between Brady and the Giants again. We already had to do it once this year, and I was going to go with the Giants and changed. I'm still mad about it. But anyway, back to this game. The Falcons, I just don't know how much they have to play for. They put a lot on the table when they played Tampa Bay last, and they did not come up with a win. They kind of blew it. I could see them just coming into this game kind of flat, being like, oh, this again. Like, hey, even if we get up big, it's not going to matter. So I don't know how hard they're going to try. I don't think Julio Jones is going to play in this game either. I think the Bucs defense will be in better shape to contain that offense than they were last time these two teams played. And I think the Falcons beyond that will be flat from the loss to the Chiefs. They really had a chance to win if A.J. Terrell doesn't drop that interception, if Young Wei-Koo doesn't miss that field goal at the end. They could have upset one of the best teams in the NFL. Instead, they're coming into the week with another loss. And even though this is a divisional opponent, I just don't know if they're going to be motivated for it. So I'm going to be on the Bucs here for 3 to 4 units. I just like it a lot, especially if we're getting a line under 7.
Yeah, I like Tampa as well. And I think a good factor here is that a couple weeks ago, as I mentioned, the Buccaneers are down big, and it seemed like they made some great adjustments at halftime to kind of solve what Atlanta was doing. And they had that information, and with like the Falcons playing hard against the Chiefs, like I doubt they're going to devise something new against the Buccaneers in such a short period of time. So I think Brady should be able to pick up where he left off. He only played a half last week, and I think that he should continue to play well. I don't think there's any reason why he would struggle, especially with his offensive line healthy again. And then speaking of offensive lines, the Falcons were missing Alex Mack last week as well as one of their guards. And it didn't really play a factor in the spread. But if you think about it, if their defense didn't do as well on Patrick Mahomes, they wouldn't have covered because they didn't really score that many points, even though they kept the game close. So if Brady's clicking with his receivers and the Buccaneers are scoring a ton, I don't know if Atlanta's going to be able to keep up because they have the injured offensive linemen. So if they're down 2 offensive linemen again, then I definitely like the Buccaneers a lot, and I'm probably going to bet as many units as you will. If the Falcons are healthier, and if Julio Jones somehow comes back, then this is going to be a non-bet for me. But I'm still going to be on Tampa.
Yeah, no, I think the injuries at this point, I just can't imagine why the Falcons would bring those guys back. Like, that's one thing that always bugs me about NFL late in the season. Like, if you're out of the playoff race in the last week of the season, I get it. Coaches are constantly fighting for their jobs and everything, and they should try to play with their full complement of players. But if you're a coach that, like, you're relatively sure you're safe, or you got a guy who's not 100%, they should sit. Like, you don't want to risk long-term injury, because even if you're a coach in a situation where you're like, oh, this guy's not fully healthy, but he can play, I'm going to play him, and then he gets hurt long term, I feel like that's more damaging to you and your reputation as a coach than it would be if you just sat him and lost worse.
Yeah, exactly. Like, can you imagine if you rush back Julio Jones and he tears his Achilles? Like, then he won't be able to play until late in 2021. Like, then I think that's just horrible. And, you're better off losing because you get a better draft pick. So there's really no point in rushing back these players. I completely agree with that.